Hello, class, and welcome to Chapter 4. We're going to be covering network design considerations. Here are a few of the topics that we'll be covering. Designing a secure network starts with understanding the security goals, such as the CIA triad and non-repudiation. Each of these contributes to a complete security approach. Defense in depth refers to using multiple security layers, each protecting the network in different ways. This method ensures that if one layer fails, others will still protect the assets. The aim is to avoid single points of failure where one issue can compromise the entire system. Using different security mechanisms at each layer makes attacks more difficult for hackers. Most networks use the TCP/IP protocol suite, which aligns with the OSI model. Each layer of the OSI model serves a different function in network communication. IP version 4 is the most widely used protocol, but has limitations due to address exhaustion. IP version 6, with its larger address space and built-in security features, solves this issue. Public IP addresses allow communication with the internet, while private addresses are isolated within the network. Dynamic addressing using DHCP simplifies IP management but introduces risks like rogue devices obtaining IPs. Here's a figure that shows IP version 4 versus IP version 6, including address length, structure, and routing capabilities. Controlling communication pathways is essential for security. Routers are used to guide data packets across networks, but they must be configured to prevent malicious traffic from entering or exiting the network. Physical isolation ensures that only authorized personnel can access routers and other key network devices. Access control lists on routers are used to block or permit traffic based on security policies. It is also important to use encryption to protect communication pathways, ensuring that sensitive data is secure even if intercepted. IDS and IPS are critical for identifying and stopping unauthorized activity. IDS monitors traffic and alerts administrators to suspicious behavior, while IPS goes a step further by actively blocking or mitigating threats in real time. Host-based systems monitor individual devices, while network-based systems examine all traffic within the network. Both approaches have their advantages depending on the deployment environment. When deploying IDS or IPS, it's essential to balance the need for visibility with the potential for false positives. Unfiltered IDS may detect more threats, but it can also lead to more false alarms. System hardening reduces vulnerabilities by removing unnecessary services and software, which decreases the attack surface available to hackers. Keeping systems up to date with patches and security updates is a fundamental part of hardening, as many exploits target unpatched software vulnerabilities. Auditing and file level permissions allow administrators to track and control access to critical resources, ensuring that only authorized users can make changes or access sensitive data. Selecting equipment is about more than just performance and cost. It is crucial to evaluate the security features of each piece of hardware. Vulnerabilities can exist in everything from routers to servers. It's important to not automatically select the cheapest or more expensive option. Instead, choose hardware that balances security with cost and ensures compliance with organizational security needs. Firmware and biosecurity should be considered when choosing equipment, as unsecure firmware can leave systems vulnerable to attacks. Here's a figure that shows hardware security best practices. AAA refers to the security processes that verify user identities, such as authentication, grant appropriate access, authorization, and track user activities, accounting. Multi-factor authentication adds an extra layer of security by requiring multiple forms of verification, such as passwords, tokens, or biometrics. The principle of least privilege states that users should have only the minimum permissions needed to perform their tasks, reducing the risk of unauthorized access or accidental damage. Redundancy ensures that systems continue to operate even if a component fails. Techniques like RAID protect data from hard drive failures, while clustering ensures that if one server fails, another can take over. Uninterruptible power supplies provide backup power in case of outages, allowing for a graceful shutdown or continuation of operations during short outages. Planning for failover ensures that when a critical system fails, there is a backup system ready to take over without disrupting services. Risk assessment involves determining the value of an asset and the likelihood of it being compromised. The single loss expectancy is the amount of loss expected from one incident, while the annualized loss expectancy estimates potential yearly loss. By calculating these values, organizations can prioritize security investments and allocate resources where they will most be effective. A cost benefit analysis ensures that the cost of implementing a security control is justified by the reduction in risk. A zone of risk is a segment of the network that requires a certain level of security based on the threat level. The higher the risk, the more security is needed. A typical network is divided into zones, such as the private network DMZ, extranet, and the public internet. Each zone represents different levels of trust, with the private network being highly trusted and the internet being less trusted. Firewalls are used to isolate these zones and control the flow of traffic between them. For example, traffic from the DMZ to the private network should be limited to only the necessary services, reducing the risk of exposure. By isolating these zones with clear security controls, organizations can better protect their sensitive assets from external threats while still allowing necessary access for public services. Intrusion detection systems monitor network traffic for suspicious activity but do not block it. Instead, they alert administrators of potential threats. This allows for more visibility into potential attacks without disrupting legitimate traffic. Intrusion prevention systems take the additional step of actively blocking detected threats. This provides a stronger defense, but requires a careful configuration to avoid false positives that could block legitimate traffic. These systems can be deployed at various points within the network, such as at the perimeter or within internal segments, to provide multiple layers of protection. The placement of these systems can greatly impact their effectiveness in detecting and preventing attacks. Here is a diagram of the network deployment scenario for IDS and IPS. Redundancy is crucial for ensuring system availability in the event of hardware or software failure. Techniques like RAID protect against data loss due to hard drive failure by duplicating data across multiple drives. Clustering is used to ensure that if one server fails, another can immediately take over its functions, maintaining service continuity. Backup power systems, such as interruptible power supplies, provide a temporary power source during outages, allowing systems to continue running or shut down gracefully to avoid data loss. Risk assessment helps organizations prioritize their security efforts by evaluating the value of their assets and the risks they face. The single loss expectancy provides an estimate of the cost of losing an asset in a single event, while the annualized loss expectancy estimates the yearly cost of that risk. Once risks are understood, organizations can perform a cost benefit analysis to determine if the cost of implementing a security control is justified by the reduction in risk. By understanding the potential losses and evaluating possible security measures, organizations can better allocate their resources to address their most critical risk. In this chapter, we discuss the critical considerations for secure network design, including defense in depth, redundancy, and controlling communication pathways. These practices ensure that networks are resilient, flexible, and capable of withstanding potential attacks. That concludes this chapter, and thank you for listening.